Hey guys, I'm back. I had some technical difficulties before, but I am back. Again, I am Jerome Braggs, and I wanted to do today's live because I've gotten a few questions from some clients I've been working with who are dealing with some health challenges. And they were asking me about um, acceptance and why is acceptance important when we're dealing with a challenge, and how is acceptance of medicine, right? And because I've been, if you've been following me for a while, you know I teach acceptance, and that acceptance is a part of love, and acceptance is a deep medicine. And as they were asking this question, I started to think about how this relates to what we're all going through right now. Whether you're going through a health challenge or not, we're all going through this pandemic, and how when a crisis of this magnitude appears in our lives, one of the greatest things that we can do is practice radical acceptance and optimism. So, I want to share with you today about how acceptance and optimism are the medicines we most need in these times, and how you actually go through these processes. Like, what does it actually mean to practice acceptance and optimism, and what does that look like? What are practical steps that you can do? And before I get into that, I want to share a real life story of mine from my own healing journey that will show you, what I'm talking about with optimism and acceptance. So before we get started, let's kind of just center in to the space right now. Let's ground ourselves into this space. Let's just close our eyes wherever we are, getting as comfortable as we can. Just take a few deep breaths in, breathing in through the nose, holding it, and breathing out through the mouth. Again, breathing in through the nose, holding it, and breathing out through the mouth. And one more time, taking in a very deep breath through the nose, hold it, relaxing the shoulders as you hold it, hold it, hold it, and exhale audibly through the mouth. Okay. Hopefully that has centered you and brought you into the space here. So, I want to start by telling you a story of mine. So, if you're new to me, if you haven't seen me before, if you're just, you don't know about my story, you don't know much about my work, or you've just joined me, I am an intuitive healer, and my gifts opened after my own healing journey. And I teach people particularly how to heal themselves through the practice of self love. And I learned all of that through my own journey with healing from terminal disease and learning how to heal myself through the practice of self love. And that started in 2004 when I had gone to the hospital with what I thought was the flu, but ended up instead being diagnosed with several life threatening illnesses and two terminal diseases, which were kidney failure and AIDS, and then given 7 days to live. Well, at that time, I threw everything I knew about, and hey, you all that are joining, I see you all saying hello. Um, at that time, I threw everything I knew about manifestation and the law of attraction at my situation. And in 3 months, I was able to fully heal my body miraculously. So I was being called a miracle by the doctors. But I found myself back in that same situation with the exact same illnesses and diagnosis a year and a half later. And that's when I had a near death experience, let me back up a second. So instead of 7 days to live that I was diagnosed with, given the first time, the second time I was given 48 hours. And on my deathbed that time, I had a near death experience where I crossed over to the other side and was told by my higher self in this dimension that the key to healing and true well being was to fully and wholly love myself. And that was the key for all of us. And that started a journey, a multi-year journey, a multi-miraculous journey and mystical journey where I learned how the practice of self-love, what it really is, what it's not, and what it really takes, and how it is the most healing and transformative practice on the planet. And that completely transformed my entire life and healed my body. And so now I teach that. I teach other people not just how to heal their bodies, but really how to transform their lives into something well and delicious. But I want to share something and I want to share something from this part of my story today to start this live. And that part is what happened the first time I healed myself. So that was the first time I went into the hospital and they gave me 7 days to live. And one of the things they did when they said, they pretty much said that I had 7 days to live was they were going to try and they were going to try everything they knew how to do to try and prolong my life a little bit. But they pretty much thought, I probably had weeks. And one of the things they did to prolong my life was they put me on dialysis. And so I had a, dialysis catheter that was put in my chest here, and they would, pull the blood out through this artery that this catheter was inside of my body and pull it out and clean it and then return my blood. And I was 24 at the time when this was starting. And I had really just in my mind, I had just started my life. So I had, just graduated from college. I had moved to a new city. I was in Washington, D.C. at this time. I had started my first professional job. I was at this time really trying to start my life in my mind. And dialysis was probably the most unwanted experience I had ever had, right? At this point of my life. I had to go to dialysis 3 times a week, and I had to go for 4 hours a time. And dialysis made me extremely tired. I had this catheter, in my chest that was not sexy to me. And there were things I couldn't do. I couldn't move around a lot. I didn't have a lot of energy. I couldn't take baths, which is what I loved because I had this thing in my chest. And so it was really unwanted. Like this whole situation was unwanted for me. And I was really struggling with it, and I was trying to heal from it majorly, right? I was trying to just do everything I could to get myself off of dialysis and get myself out of here and to get myself away from this because I felt unattractive. I felt limited. I felt like my life was different. This wasn't what I had planned. So this is very important. So we're gonna get back to this later, but I want to share this story. So just some points. Like this wasn't what I had planned for my life, right? I had an idea of how I thought my life should go, and dialysis was not it. Right? So I wanted to be famous. I wanted to be super sexy, and this was not what I had planned for my life. And so when I would go to dialysis, I would have I would have a headphones on. So at this time, this is before we had like smartphones and all that. So I literally had like a Walkman. So if you all remember Walkmans, I had a Walkman which played a CD, and then I would have headphones. And so I would be listening to, and what I would listen to was inspirational talks about healing. And then I would have a book that I would bring, and I would read this book, right? And all of this I was doing so that I didn't have to be in this situation, right? That I didn't have to. I would take myself out of this because I didn't want. It was almost like I didn't want to believe that I was here, and I didn't want to accept that this was real for me. Like to me, this was not real for me. This is not my life. This is not what's going to happen. What's real for me is I'm well, and this is going to be me. And I was approaching this whole situation from that, right? Like I'm going to be well and I'm well and this is not my life. And so another thing that happened was I never talked to any of the other patients. So I was in this situation and I never talked to the other patient. I can't even tell you what they look like actually. Like, and they were sitting kind of like how the chairs were. They were right next to me, and I never talked to them. I would just literally, as soon as I got in there, I would put my headphones on and I would put in this book and I would try to keep I didn't look around. I didn't look at the machine. I didn't even know what the machine looked like or what it was doing. I didn't know any of those things. I was just like, this is not real, right? And I was in that situation, that was what I was doing. I was trying everything, trying to get out of the situation, trying everything, trying to, diet and energy work and all of this stuff, trying to get out of the situation and not being, not putting myself in this space. This is where I'm not here. This is not real. And there was a day that happened. So I was on dialysis this was about 3 months in, right? And so there was a day that happened. And so for this whole 3 months, this is exactly the ritual. Every time I went to dialysis treatment, 3 times a week, this is the ritual. I would come in, I didn't know the names of the nurses or the techs that were working with me, even though I would talk to them when they spoke to me. I didn't know them. I didn't know the names of any of the other patients. I didn't even talk to them. I didn't look around the room because I didn't want to take that in my head. I was saying, I don't want to take this into my consciousness. I don't want to take this into my consciousness. This is not real for me. And I put my headphones on and I opened this book until my treatment was over and it was time for me to go home. And 3 months in, there was this day that came. And on this day, there was my higher self spoke to me very clearly. Probably one of the loudest times I've ever heard it. And I'm an intuitive and I hear my higher self and other people's higher selves a lot. And I talk directly to it now. And I can tell you this day was probably the loudest and the clearest I've ever heard it speak. And it said to me, I remember this like it was yesterday. I had my little book in my hand and I had my headphones on. I was just here and I was listening to the tape and I was reading the book. And it said to me, what if this is going to be your life? What if this is supposed to be your life? What if nothing changes from here on out? Can you still live and be joyful? Can you still live and be happy? And it almost, remembering that is bringing tears to my eyes, because what I realized in that moment was I was so busy trying to get to this other life that I wasn't living the one that I had right now. Even if it wasn't the life that I wanted, let me say the life that I had preferred, it was still my life. And it was the only one I had right now. And I deserve to be at peace with that life. And I deserved to be happy in that life, even if it wasn't the one that I was preferring. And the one that I was preferring was to be well and to be healthy and for this not to be here, right? But that's not what I was being given. What was happening right now was that I was on dialysis and that I was facing a health challenge. And I made in that moment the decision that even though this was not what I preferred, I was going to accept it. And I was going to be present for it. And I was going to live this life. I was going to live this life well, even if it's not what I preferred. And I made that decision. And I took those headphones off and I closed that book and I laid it to the side And for the first time, I looked around that room and I saw those people, all the people that I had been ignoring, all this. And I looked at the dialysis machine, the machine that was literally keeping me alive right now. I looked at it and I saw it and I recognized how beautiful it was that it was keeping me alive. And I saw those beautiful faces of those people that were around me. And I began talking to the guy who was right next to me for the first time. And we had a beautiful conversation and we laughed. And I just accepted my life. And I said, this is it. This is my life. And I welcome it. And instead of trying to reject it and push it away and fight it and say, I'm not okay if this is my life, I said, I'm okay right here. I'm still okay. And I'm going to be okay. And I'm going to find beauty here. I'm going to find beauty even in this. And I just, for the rest of that treatment, I didn't put my headphones on. I didn't read that book. I just looked and I was just present. And I went home that day and I really just accepted. And there was a weight, you guys. There was a weight. I literally could feel this energetic weight that was taken off of me, and it was the weight of pushing against what is. I made peace with what is. What is was I was on dialysis and I was facing a health challenge, and I made peace with it. And that night was probably one of the best sleeps I've ever had. It was just a weight was lifted off of me. I wasn't fighting my life anymore. I wasn't fighting against it. And so this is so then the next treatment. So I don't remember what treatment this was, but I remember I had a treatment after this. So um let's say this was, I can't remember if I think I was going Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays at this time. So maybe this was the Thursday that this happened, and maybe this was a Saturday that I was going. And so the next treatment was Saturday. And that treatment, I left my headphones at home. I left my book at home. And I said, I'm just going to be present. I'm just going to be here. I was looking forward to talking to the other patients. I was looking forward to this. And so I went to the treatment. And for the first time, I really paid attention to how they were hooking me up to the machine. I asked them questions about, so what does this actually do for me? Like, what does this part of the machine do for me? And how does it clean my blood? And I was talking to the guy. And so what happens is sometimes on dialysis, your doctor will come. And your doctor will come to the treatment center, your nephrologist who handles your kidneys. And they will come to the treatment center and they'll go over some of your blood work and what you need to be doing to further your treatment with the dialysis in your kidneys. And so for this day, just so happened this day, my doctor came in, and my doctor came in this day, and they had just drawn blood that morning, and he was reading over this blood. He was asking me, how are you doing? Just kind of the normal talk. And then all of a sudden he said to me, he was looking and he said, oh my God. And he looked, he said, okay, wait a minute. So he got up, he was talking to me, he looked at this lab stuff. He said, oh my God. He got up and then he went back to talk to the people in the back, and then he came back and then he was like, okay, I need one more thing. Hold on 1 second. He went back and got something else after he went back to come there, and he came back and he was like, I don't know what's happened in the last few days or in the last week, but it seems like your kidneys have come back. For everything that we're looking at from the blood work that we have today, it looks like your kidneys are starting to operate. I've never seen anything like this. This is a miracle. And he said, I need to take you off of dialysis today. That was the last day that they took me off of that. That was the day they took me off of dialysis that day. And my kidneys had returned and they had healed that day. And as he had taken me off that machine and I was going home, and I had come home early because I was supposed to, the treatment was supposed to be like 4 hours. But when he had come and he had seen this, I think I was only like 2 hours into the treatment, so they just stopped it and he took me off the machine. And as I was riding home, I knew that what had healed me was I had finally accepted my life. That I wasn't fighting. And I had bled the toxin of resistance out of my energy field. And I was at peace. I was at peace with what is. And what that situation taught me, and so my kidneys had healed from that. And what that situation had taught me was the medicine of acceptance. That when we accept our situations, only then do we give that situation permission to change and change in our favor. I want to say this again, when we accept our situation, when we make peace with it, when we're not forcing it to be different in order for us to be okay, when we're not rejecting it and pushing it away and trying so hard to change it, when we accept it and make peace with it, this is the paradox of the universe. That's when we give it permission to change in our favor. Now, I can't tell you how it's going to change in your favor. It may have a miraculous healing like I did. It may be something different. But even if you don't heal, even if you're dealing with an illness, even if that illness doesn't heal, you'll be at peace and you'll be happy. You'll be at peace and you'll be happy. And you were not before. So I wanted to share this story to lead into this second part, which is, what is the process of acceptance? Because acceptance really is, and why acceptance is so important, is because acceptance is a facet of love. And only where love exists can something be changed for the better. There are a lot of changes that can happen without love. There are a lot of changes that can happen without love, but not healing and not transformation. Healing and transformation need love in order to occur. So why I'm bringing this up in this pandemic is because this pandemic is a crisis for many of us, right? Many of us have lost our jobs. Many of us may have gotten ill with this illness. We may have contracted the illness. Many of us, even if we haven't lost our jobs, our income has been dramatically declined, like mine. Many of us we're in isolation, and that has affected us. This is a crisis. And so what I have found, and this happened many years ago, and anytime a crisis has arisen in my life, no matter where it arrives, no matter what area of my life it shows up in, whether it's in my health, my finances, my relationships, whatever that crisis is about, I have always found that when I accept it, somehow that situation miraculously changes for the better for me. Somehow. So I want to walk you through the process of acceptance. So if any of you all are dealing with anything, one, with this pandemic, this will definitely help you. But if any other area in your life where you just can't have been fighting to try and change it, you've been fighting to try and think, you've been telling yourself you're not okay unless this situation changes, and somehow I want to really just give you this medicine of acceptance, because acceptance is love. And I'm big for the definition of things, so I want to give you the definition, because I looked this up before I started this video today, and I want to give you the definition of acceptance. So before we start with the process, the definition of acceptance is acceptance is the action of consenting to receive or undertake something offered. The action of consenting to receive or undertake something offered. And this is so beautiful, right? So many of us, we're taught to resist. And even in so many in the self-help and the personal growth, and even in the spirituality fields, a lot of times, instead of accepting something where we take this, nope, I'm going to change it. I'm going to change it into what I want. I'm changing it into what I want. I want to change it into what I want. And while I am a big proponent of understanding that you can manifest and create, your desires, I am a bigger proponent of teaching to trust life and to keep your energy in an energy of love. Because a lot of times when we're coming from that, I'm going to change this thing into what I want, what you're coming from is the energy of resistance. And that just really fucks up your energy. Literally, it does not. It keeps you from being at peace. It keeps you from seeing the beauty that is in your present moment. It keeps you from being present. And so I'm going to share. So I'm going to dive into this right now without going onto that particular soapbox. But and by the way, if you have any questions with this video, please put them in the comment section. I see many of you all are going and sharing some beautiful comments here. If you have a question for me, put it in the comment section and with the hashtag #AskJerome. So hashtag #AskJerome, and then type your question. That lets me know you have a question that you want me to respond to. So the first step in acceptance is grieving. This is a huge step. And it's a huge step for why we often don't get into the peace that acceptance brings. And we don't elevate our energy and raise our vibration by making peace and accepting, right? So again, accepting is consent. It's like literally receiving and undertaking what life has offered you. Instead of pushing away from it and saying, nope, that's not what's best for me. That's not what I want. Get this away from me. You literally lean into it, right? That's what leaning in and embracing and welcoming, opening the door to what's being offered to you from life, right? And the first step to doing that is to grieve. And what I mean by that is what you're grieving is the loss, right? It's allowing yourself to feel the pain of a loss. And what you're grieving is the loss of the life you thought you should have been living. Actually, there's two things. There's the loss of the life you think you should have been living, and the loss of who you thought you should have been in this life right now. So what I had to let go of, right, and what I had to grieve, and grieving is literally allowing you to release. That's what grieving, actually, the purpose of grieving is. It's not just to be in pain. Grieving is allowing you to release. So this is actually like when you're grieving, a lot of times you'll cry. This is what literally tears are. They are literally release. They're the literally physical manifestations of an energy release within you. And so what I had to do in that story that I shared with you was I had to grieve the loss of the life I should have been living, which is at that time was a healthy life, was a life that didn't have a catheter in my chest, was, whatever dreams I thought I should have been doing at that time that I wasn't able to do at that time. I had to grieve that. I had to grieve the loss of that, right? And I had to grieve the person I thought I should have been, which was the person that didn't have to deal with all of this. I had to grieve that. And I had to allow myself to grieve that. And one thing I do with my clients is, right, when they're going through something, we have grief days where like for 24 hours, you're going to grieve today, right? You're not going to answer your phone. You're not going to answer emails. You're not going to be on social media. You're going to grieve whatever it is you need to grieve, right? Some of my clients have lost loved ones. They've lost children. They've lost lovers. They've lost siblings. They've lost parents. And a lot of times in our culture, especially, we just try to rush into our normal lives and we go over the grief process and we don't allow ourselves in that. And what happens if we don't express an emotion is it gets stuck and it becomes an energy blockage. And that energy blockage, if it is allowed to stay in, if we don't process it and we don't express it, one, it keeps you from manifesting better for yourself because energy has to flow through you. And if there's any way where any place in your energy where it's not flowing, it's going to block your manifestations. The other thing that happens is when you have an emotion that or something that is suppressed inside of you, and it keeps your energy from flowing, so that your health will get suppressed, and so you'll begin to manifest an illness or a disease because there's a blockage in you somehow. And when we don't grieve, we block our energy. So you have to grieve this, right? And so when we're talking about this pandemic, a lot of us haven't, I've seen those conversations and those memes that are going around that are saying, you should come out of this situation better. You need to find a new skill or learn something to do and all of that. And that's all great and fine. But the first thing you need to do is you need to grieve. You need to grieve how you thought. You need to grieve these things. The life you thought you should have been living right now, right? I thought, I did a video before where I talked about, I thought that I had all this stuff that I was going to be, all these workshops and retreats and things that I was getting ready to do. I had to completely shelf all of that right now. And I had to grieve that. I had some trips that I had planned this month. As a matter of fact, right now, I had planned on my calendar to be in Detroit, hanging out with some people I really, really love that I don't get to see often. And I had to cancel that trip. I only get to see those people really like once or twice a year. And this was one of my one time a year to see them. I had to cancel that trip. There's a lot of travel. I love to travel. There's a lot of travel I had to cancel for months up because, there's nothing happening. So I had to grieve that part of my life. I had to grieve not being able to see my friends and not being able to connect. I'm an introvert, but I'm also a very social creature. I like to spend time with my friends when I want to spend time with them. But I'm a very, social creature. So, there's a grieving process that I had to do around that. And so there's a grief in this for you, whatever that is for you, right? Some of you lost your job. You need to grieve that. You need to grieve that. Some of you, may have had loved ones who were ill and you've had to take care of them. Some of you may have lost loved ones during this. You have to grieve that process. Whatever grief this is, right? Around one, the life you thought you should have lived and the person you thought you should have been right now. This is what you need to be grieving. Okay, so that's the first step in acceptance, is to grieve the loss. And then this leads you to the second step, because once you've expressed those feelings of grief and you've grieved that loss, you truly have grieved it. There's a release that happens. There's a release that happens. And so, telling you my story in the beginning, once I finally accepted that this was my life and I grieved the loss of the fact that the life I thought I had lived was not the life that I'm living, and that's not here, and that's gone, there was a release. I told you there was a weight that there's a weight that literally you feel it energetically. You will feel a weight fall off of you and you begin to feel lighter. And then there's a space that happens within you. There's a space that happens that frees up, where that resistance and the grief, once that is released, right? There's a space that happens within you where and that allows you to feel something else. And what happens when that space happens is you start to see the beauty. You start to see the beauty It reminds me of that movie that Will Smith done, one of my favorite movies by him, called Collateral Beauty. And I just love that term because that's literally what it is, right? So this situation may not have been what you wanted. It may even be painful, right? And so again, this is what I was telling my clients, which is what this video was inspired from. My clients who are dealing with illnesses. Um, this illness was not what you preferred, but once you begin to accept it and you've grieved the loss and you've really grieved it and you release and you've accepted that this is where I am. What starts to happen is you start to see the beauty that is there in your life. So if you remember, I looked around in that situation and I looked around for the first time and I started to see those beautiful people that were right there in this experience with me. I started to see how beautiful this machine was and how brilliant it was that it was keeping me alive, and how all the different intricacies about it and how brilliant the people must have been that have created something like this. And I started to think about all these things like that were nowhere near my mind before, right? And you start to see the beauty of what is present in your life right now. Instead of trying to search for what's going to be beautiful, in the future, you start to see what's right here. Because what I can promise you, this is a promise. I promise you with everything that I have, no matter what's happening in your life right now, no matter what's not in your life, or no matter what is in your life, there is beauty there that is just waiting for you to see it. And it is beauty beyond what you will believe. And it only happens once you hit acceptance. Once you accept, the world becomes more beautiful than you could have imagined. And you start to see that yes, your life has been changed. And again, this is what happens once you allow yourself to grieve, and if there's a space, you start to see that yes, although your life has been changed somehow, that it's also become more and not less. This was something else I realized in that situation when I went home. So I told you after I went home and I that day that I had finally accepted that I was on dialysis and this was my life. What I started to go home and I started to see was how beautiful this situation had made my life, because my family had come up to kind of support me for a while and they were staying with me. And during that situation that my family had come up because they thought I was dying, in the beginning. So the doctors told them that I had, days to live. So my family all came up because they thought that I was dying. So what happened in that time was we got closer than we had ever been. We started having conversations that we had never had before. We started telling each other how we really felt about each other, what we really loved about each other. We started apologizing for things that had happened in the past. This situation had brought my family closer together. And I had been surrounded by love more than I had ever felt before, more than I'd ever experienced before from them. And probably in my whole life. And there was this beauty of this. And there was this beauty of looking at what was here now in my life. Like looking at, I began to see, well, if this is my last days, right? If these are my last few weeks on this planet, how beautiful flowers are, how beautiful the sun is. Like I just was, I was just so appreciative and I saw the beauty and I got to see that even if there were some things that had been taken away from me, because there were, right? I wasn't able to, go out and work like I was able to work. I wasn't able to take a bath because I had this thing in my chest. But there were things that were taken away, but there was love and there was beauty that had been added to my life. And you get to see that once you deal with the grief. And I've done this work with many people, even people who've lost a loved one. And in the beginning, when you lose, especially when you lose a loved one, and those of you who lost a loved one, you can kind of really understand this. In the beginning, all you see is the loss. All you think you see is what's been taken away from you. And what happens when you really allow yourself to grieve this loss, right? If you really allow yourself to go into the grief, which many people don't, we don't like to go into the depths of the sadness that grief can have. And our culture likes to kind of skirt people out of that really quickly, right? We try to get them over that really quickly. But if you allow yourself to go into it, this is why I really believe, like, go into it. Because when you go into the feeling and you allow yourself to feel it, it will release itself for real. But when you go into that, what happens after you grieve the loss, that you start to have these beautiful memories of them, stuff you probably weren't even thinking about before. You start to have this different relationship with them. And also, as an intuitive, what I know is after you grieve the loss of a person, you can then connect with their who they are in spirit on the other side, and you have this new relationship with them that's even more beautiful sometimes than the one you had with them when they were actually physically here. But that doesn't happen until the grief is released, until you grieve and that's released. You open up to this beauty and you see this new beauty has been added. This whole new relationship with your loved one on the other side has been added to you. And this only happens once that happens, but you begin to see the collateral beauty, and I promise you it's there. I promise you it's there, but you cannot see it. You can't see it until you accept. And so, with this collateral beauty, one other thing that starts to happen is you start to realize that even this experience, even this pandemic, even this illness that showed up for you, even this divorce, even this financial crisis that you're in, when you get to acceptance, you start to see even this has served me. See, if someone's saying there's a packet of love and understanding at the center of grief, absolutely. Absolutely, John. That's beautiful. When she really processed this grief, there comes this packet of love and understanding. And you get to this, again, you get to this peace, right? And what you begin to realize is the greater, deeper, divine truth of your being. Is that even in this situation, you're still being loved. Life is still loving you. It may not have been the way that you thought it should have been, but even in this situation, love is here and you are still being loved and you have not been separated from love. There is beauty, there is love. Life is loving you in ways in this situation when you get to the space that you realize that that you couldn't see before. The love is present and here in ways you couldn't even see before. And that's when you start to get to the third part, which is the peace. You start to get to this deeper sense of peace. Because now you welcome the changes. Now you welcome the changes. Once you've grieved it, you welcome this new life. You know, there's, again, I've learned so much through working with the clients that I've had who have, you know, dealt with the loss of a loved one. And, you know, they'll tell you that there's a period of time after they've fully done the grief and they've come to acceptance, that they welcome this new life that they have. They welcome this new life, right? So again, this pandemic is not what you may have been preferred. It may not have been what you wanted or asked for. Or there's a meme, as a matter of fact, I've seen going around that I laugh about. Was like, this was not on your vision board for 2020, right? But once you begin to accept it, you get to a peace, and you welcome the changes, and you understand that even this is serving you somehow, even though it wasn't preferred. You're no longer fighting against it. You're no longer at war with it, right? And that's kind of where I've got myself at with this point. Was, even though, I prefer to be having nachos with my friends right now, I would prefer to be, trapped, in Detroit with the people that I was wanting to go see and that I love. But I am welcome this opportunity to rest more. I have welcomed this opportunity to connect with you all like this more and more intimately. I have welcomed this opportunity to kind of just slow down and reorganize and rearrange and relook at my life, which is what I've been doing. And this is the thing. And someone is asking here, what is the difference between, Shannon's asking, what is the difference between allowing an emotion and wallowing in it? So the difference between allowing an emotion and wallowing in it is, and I'm going to get to that actually when we get to the optimism piece of this. But the first thing is, and if you've been following me for a while, and you may be new to me, but if you've been following me for a while, you've heard me say this: honesty before positivity, right? And you have to be honest about how you feel, and you have to express it. And what happens when you really allow yourself to express an emotion is there'll come a time where you'll feel it. And a lot of times why we get stuck in emotion is because we haven't actually expressed it. We haven't really expressed it. And that's why we're stuck in it. Like, it gets stuck in here. And we have this underlying thing of sadness, or this underlying thing of anger, or this underlying feeling of grief, because you haven't actually allowed yourself to sit in it and feel it. Because when you feel it, emotions are messengers. And they're literally messengers that they're here to give us a message. And when you allow yourself to feel that emotion and express it in a healthy way, right? It'll give its message to you. And once you get that message, you can apply that message, and then that emotion is free to go. And you won't wallow in it anymore. Right? And usually what I give myself 24 to 48 hours to fully feel a message, to fully feel it, an emotion, to fully feel it out, to feel it. I'm angry. Let me go express this anger. I'm gonna lock myself in this closet. I'm gonna scream at the top of my lungs about what I'm angry about. I'm gonna write this. I'm gonna get this piece of paper. I'm gonna write out, what I'm angry about. Or I'm sad. I'm gonna write out what I'm sad about. Or I'm gonna sit and I'm gonna cry all day today, right? Or, I'm going to stomp my feet and say, this isn't fair today, or whatever I'm going to do. And what happens is you have a release. The emotion will tell you, it will release itself. And then it will say, and then you'll have an aha moment. Here's what I was really sad about. Here's what I'm really angry about. And it usually wasn't what I thought it was. Right? And then I'll apply that wisdom. Oh, so, a lot of times when I'm angry, after I scream in the closet, I realize, oh, this was about me not focusing my energy somewhere where I really wanted it. Instead, I did something I really didn't want to do, or there was a boundary here that I didn't realize was really important to me that I need to communicate to other people. Right? That's what happens a lot of times when I express anger. Same thing with grief. A lot of times when you accept grief, you express it, and then it lets you know, I haven't been focusing on what's actually here. It's time for me to focus on my life. That's here, the life that's really here in the present moment. So that's really how you're not, if you're still, if it's, I can't tell you, that you should feel a feeling for an hour, or you should feel it for a day or something like that. But I can tell you, if you allow yourself to actually express that feeling, instead of trying to hide it, or you allow yourself to really express it. I'm sad, or, to speak it out. A lot of times just speak out loud what you're actually feeling, right? I feel this really sucks that I have to stay in the house. A lot of times you just say it out loud, you'll feel your shoulders relax, and you're like, oh, okay, I said that. Oh, and now that I got it out, I'm cool. I can think about something else now. Right? So that's kind of the difference. And I'll do another video about, I told you while I'm creating the self-love school, if you go on my website and you click the self-love school tab, you can read about it. I'll be launching that here within the next month or so. But I'm going to be teaching all about this. This is going to be a topic all in that, because that is definitely a part of learning how to love ourselves. It's really how to feel and express our emotions so that we can move to a higher emotion. But you can't move to a higher emotion while you're trying to push down or run away from the emotion that you're currently trying to express. You have to express it. Emotions are to be expressed. They are not to be ignored. And they're not there to ebb and flow. You're not to stay in emotion, but if you express it, it leaves and then it frees up your energy field so you can feel something else. Um, and which is one of the things is peace. So what happens? So going back to peace, right? Which is, we only got a few more things to share with you, but when you get to peace, you've bled the poison of resistance. You see, resistance to what is a poison. There's a difference between resistance and a preference. You can prefer something to be different, right? Like I prefer my life to be different. I don't want to stay in the house, for the rest of my life. I don't want to wear a mask for the rest of my life. I don't want to be socially distancing from people I love, or from strangers even, for the rest of my life. I prefer a different reality, right? And so I can prefer that, and I can even visualize that while still accepting that this is the present reality that I'm in right now, right? Without rejecting this reality that I'm in right now and pushing against it and saying that I'm not okay if while this is happening. Because that's another, what resistance does is it says I'm not okay unless this changes. And what the truth of your soul is unconditionally being okay. That's the master lesson here. That's the master. That's one of the things why the soul incarnates here, is to master this understanding of feeling okay no matter what. That I am okay no matter what. I can be at peace no matter what. Right? The world, like, yes, the world is in chaos in some parts. I don't have to join it. And how I don't join that chaos is I can start first by telling myself that I don't need my life to be different than it is in order for me to be okay. This is when the paradox happens. So remember when I told you about my story, right? That's what happened when I was in the dialysis chair that day. I said, I don't need this to be different anymore. I'm going to be okay just as I am. I'm going to be okay in this life right here. This is not what I preferred. And I will still prefer something else. But I'm going to show up for what this is. And I'm going to be okay in it. And I'm going to be at peace. And I'm going to find the beauty and I'm going to find joy here. And this is the paradox of the universe. When you truly accept what is, when you would truly accept your situation, that's when you energetically allow that situation to change for the better for you, and not a moment before. And this is so counter to, all of the self-improvement and, a lot of the self-help and even a lot of the spirituality things about, you're forcing and trying to force your hand and try to force the hand of the universe to change something. Is you just let it work out for you because you're loved. And when you accept this, you allow this, that's when you begin to energetically allow the universe to work this situation out for your better. It can't change in your favor until you change to peace. It cannot change in your favor until you change to peace. Or better yet, it can't change in your favor until you change your energy back to love. Until you come into acceptance and peace. Because love is the only energy that changes things for the better. Remember I said before, there's a lot of changes that can happen without love, but not changes for the better. There's a lot of changes that can happen without love, but not changes for the better. You have to have love. You have to have love energy to change something for the better. And one of the ways you embody your love energy, you bring more love energy in you, is to accept. And so this leads us kind of to the last phase of this, is once you've gotten here, right? Once you accept it, then you can truly become optimistic. I am for optimism more than I am for blind positivity. Because a lot of times when we try to be positive, what we do is we suppress how we're feeling. And remember I said when you suppress something, it becomes stuck in your energy and your energy can't flow. And so you can't manifest something better, because acceptance opens your energy field, by the way. It allows it to flow because everything is at peace. There's nothing blocking it. There's no resistance blocking it. It literally bleeds the resistance out of your energy field. And your energy is free to flow. And when it flows, that's when your energy flows something better into manifestation. But when you're in resistance, there's a blockage and the energy can't flow to manifest anything better. And so, and one of the things that happens when you're in flow is that you can really start to be optimistic. When you're rushing to put a smiley face, I see you saying put a smiley face sticker on everything. That is so, it doesn't fix anything. And again, often it's suppressing your energy down, and it's causing further blocks. So that's why you want to express first. And then remember I said honesty before positivity. So you get honest, and then that releases that energy, and then you go into positivity. Then you go into, and for me, optimism is different than positivity. So I'm going to give you the definition of optimism, right? And optimism has some positivity in it, but it's a little different. And this is the definition, the dictionary definition of optimism, which I love. Again, I love looking up the actual definitions of things. And so optimism is the hopefulness and confidence about the successful outcome of something. The hopefulness and confidence about the successful outcome of something. Right? And so once you get to acceptance, then you can begin to understand, and you can begin to practice the thoughts that I am loved, and love only wants good for me. So out of this situation, only good was coming. I'm going to give you an affirmation, my favorite affirmation, to work with in these times, right? So this is optimism, and why optimism is a medicine, right? So hope. Right? Optimism is hope. And hope is trusting in a future possibility of joy. Optimism is hope. It's hopefulness. And that is trusting in the future possibility of joy. Whatever unique joy is that you want. Right? And why optimism is a medicine is because as a soul, what you hold in your consciousness is what you manifest, right? What you believe is what you manifest. What you believe is what you manifest. So, I've talked a lot about as within, so without. So when you get to optimism, why you want to be optimistic and why we need optimism in these times is because although you're accepting what is, right? And you're making peace with what is, that doesn't mean that you can't hold in your mind a hopefulness for a better future. Even if you can't see how, even if you don't know how. Remember, we've talked about how the how is not your business, by the way. The how is the universe's business. You don't have to know how. You just have to know what. And so I am holding in my consciousness that this is going to work out for me somehow. that this situation is going to work out. And that's even what I did when I was on that dialysis, when I got off of that dialysis chair, when I was on my way home. Even though I'm on dialysis, somehow my life is still going to be delicious for me. This is still going to work out for me somehow. The universe is still going to shape this in my favor. I have a preference about how I want that to be, which is fully healthy. But even if that's not the outcome is going to work out for me. And it's going to serve me some type of way, in a better way than I even know. Right? And this is one of my favorite. I want to give you an affirmation to give. So again, when you understand that the situation doesn't matter, by the way. The situation you're in doesn't matter. What matters is the energy that you hold within you. And I've said this before in many, many videos and many writings and many of the things I post. I've said this before. The situation that you're in doesn't matter whatsoever. It doesn't matter what's going on, who's doing what, who's saying what. All that matters is the energy that you hold within you. Because the energy that you hold within you is what manifests the outer experience. So if you hold the energy of peace, if you hold the energy of hopefulness, if you hold the energy of joy, you are going to manifest an outer experience that matches that. But if you hold an energy of fighting against, if you hold an energy of fear, if you hold an energy of worry, you're going to manifest an outer experience that matches that. Remember, I've said this before. When you hold worry, you have to manifest something to worry about. The universe is not going to make you crazy. The universe loves you. This is something to really understand as a soul, your actual relationship here and your power. The universe cannot make you crazy. So if you believe something, you have to have evidence to support that. So the universe will manifest evidence to support it. So if you worry about something, you have to manifest something to worry about. This is why I don't, and I've gotten some questions by some of you all, and I saw a question even here asking me about what I think about some of the conspiracy theories. So this is why I don't give a lot of energy to those. And I'm not saying that they're not real. And this is something, and I'm going to give you this affirmation after this, because absolutely anything can be real. Anything is possible. But I only focus on what's true and what's wanted. And I'm going to say this again. Anything can be real, meaning anything can be materialized. So there could be a lot of things going on that are real. You know, there could be, did somebody create this? Is this trying to have, to go through population control? All of that can be absolutely real. There could be the people really doing that. But the truth is always the spirit, the soul. And the soul is always trying to work things out for your favor and trying to lead you to a higher experience of well-being. Always. Always. No matter what is showing up. No matter what is showing up, it is showing up somehow to lead you to a deeper experience of well-being and to love you more, not less. And if you focus on the truth, you'll get more of the truth. But if you focus on what's real, you'll get more of what's real. Because what you focus on, you draw more of to you. You feed it with your energy, you expand it, and you bring more of it to you. So is that what you want? Do you want those conspiracies? Or do you want the truth that you're being guided to well-being and that you're going to be loved in a deeper way than you can see, even if you can't see how right now? I always focus on the truth and I focus on what I want. That's optimism. Focus on the truth and focus on the possibility of joy that you want in the future. And so here's an affirmation. So, but one more thing before we get to affirmation. So that's my thing. I don't negate. I'm not trying to negate any of the things, right? Because anything can be real. Because here's another thing about, again, remember what I said about the universe. So if you believe something, there has to be evidence to support that. So if you believe that somebody created this, you're going to manifest evidence, and there's going to be real evidence that somebody created this. If you believe that they're doing this to control the population, you are going to get evidence of that somewhere. There's going to be supportive evidence. If you believe that none of that is true, if you believe that this is all, trying to serve your highest good and that the world is going to be better for this some type of way, guess what? You're going to get evidence of that. So the question is, what do you want to be real? What do you want to be real? I specifically want to be real that this situation is leading the world into a higher experience of well-being and a higher experience of understanding who we are and a higher experience of connectedness. That's what I'm focusing on. And I'm letting all of that other stuff, I'm letting all those other conversations be what they are. I'm not going to join in them. I'm not going to be a part of them because I know what the truth that I want to see real. You have to make the truth real. And what I mean by that is this is the world of reality. So this is the world of reality, right? So this is what's real. In order to make the truth real, you have to focus on it and you have to believe it. That's how you make the truth real. So what's the truth that you want to be real? Do you want the truth that this is, that you're going to lose your power, you're going to lose your freedom? Is that the truth you want to make real? Or do you want the truth that I'm going to be even more free? We're going to be even more free because of this. And I'm going to be even more healthy because of this. And I'm going to be even more happy because of this. What's the truth that you want to make real? And you focus on that. So I want to give you this affirmation. One more truth. I want the truth that all is well. I want the truth that all is well. And that's the truth that I'm trying to make real. So this affirmation, this is the optimistic affirmation that I'm saying right now and that I invite all of you all to say as well. Even though I can't see how right now, I am loved. And out of this situation, only good will come. This is going to work out in my favor. I am loved, and love is leading me through this situation somehow to a greater experience of well-being. I'm going to say this one more time. Even though I can't see how right now, this is really important. That part right there is really important because you may not be able to see how, and you just want to give your brain a chance to relax so it doesn't have to try and figure out how. Take it off the hook. Even though I can't see how right now, I am loved. And out of this situation, only good will come. This is going to work out in my favor. I am loved, and love is leading me through this somehow to a greater experience of well-being. Just use that as a mantra, as an affirmation. Let that wash over you so that you focus in optimistically on a more positive possibility of joy in your future. That this is going to work out for you. That's what I had to say in my own healing journey. I didn't know how I was going to heal. I didn't know, I was trying different things, but I didn't know. I just accepted what was. But I just, somehow, this is going to work out for me. And I'm loved. And this situation, even this dialysis situation, is going to lead me to well-being somehow. And it did. And somehow this pandemic is going to lead us to a greater experience of well-being somehow. And somehow you are going to find the collateral beauty in this situation. Whatever experience of this situation you're having, somehow you're going to accept. You're going to make peace with what is. You're going to find the beauty. You're going to release this from your energy field. And you're going to open yourself up to allow this now to work out in your favor in a way that you can't even see. Some miraculous way. Some miraculous way, this whole situation is going to work out for you and for us better than we could have ever even imagined. Thank you all for joining me. I love you. I am so deeply honored that you all show up here in these lives with your questions, and this community, and for all of those who work with me personally, thank you. By the way, I'm still running, we have just a few more days left in April. I'm still running a 50% off special on my clarity sessions, my one-on-one sessions, the ones that are clarity, which is a 1-hour session with me. I'm running 50% off. If you want to work with me and you've been waiting and hoping that, financially you would get a break, this is the break. Just until the end of April. After April, they're going back to regular price. It's not on my website. So if you want the special, please email me directly at jerome@jeromebraggs.com. Again, my email is jerome@jeromebraggs.com, and say, hey, I'd like the special. I'd like to work with you. It's 50% off right now. So that's half off. So if you would like to work with me, please, for the rest of April, you've just got a few more days to take, but just to let you know, the special is still on. Thank you all who have reached out and who already and have gotten that special. Thank you for all of your clients. I see some of you all on here now. I love you. And for all of you all here who just show up with your presence and your energy, you add to the space and you add to the elevation of this tribe and to the world. Thank you so much. Much love. Bye.